All right, here's Roman Villarreal.
All right, thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone for having me back here, the user group. Just a real brief introduction because I'd really like to spend most of the time talking about the topic. My name is Roman, and that's my email. If you need to ask me any questions, I've been a little bit bad at getting back lately, but I'll do my best. I work for a company called Bright. We do digital design and training. We're located in Austin, and we also have some other locations around the country. Lately, I've been doing a lot of remote working like everyone else, but I've also been trying to dive into other things. And what I mean by other things is things other than Adobe stuff, okay?
Yeah. What?
It's like, what? How could you? Well, and the main reason why I've been doing that is because, well, yeah, I've been doing this for so long, so, and you guys have been doing it even longer, some of you. And I just am trying to find, what else is there, that could be interesting for me. And so part of that is kind of going out into looking at some of these applications such as Instagram or Snapchat, and seeing what kind of things users are interested in using out there within their communications. And so part of that is still, for some reason, animated GIFs. They're still popular. Okay, in fact, they're quite popular enough that they were even in a very hot topic the other day. Facebook tried to buy Giphy. There was a merger. Okay, not Facebook, Meta, right? And basically, the UK stepped in. The government stepped in and said, nope, it's not going to happen. And they basically ordered Meta to sell Giphy, saying they couldn't keep it because there was going to be this potential issue within the advertising market because these animated GIFs are used like crazy. And so it's very engaging, especially for a younger audience. I mean, all of us have used animated GIFs before. And at some point, even if you didn't really mean to. And so, there's some animated GIFs here. And maybe you even made some back in the day. And you're like, oh, those were the days that we used to make animated GIFs. But we don't really do that anymore because that was old. It's like, well, it's been back for a long time now. It's never really went away. And it's not a great technology, but it is a technology. You probably know, those of you that used Flash, for example, Cornelius, that Flash is way superior as far as creating animation and stuff like this. But for some reason, this is stuck. They're not very well optimized. They don't support a lot of colors. And they're very limited in what you can do, but they are used everywhere. And they're used very heavily for engaging users. And engaging users means advertisers can really put messages out there and they're catchy and they stick people. And so this site that I'm looking at right now is Giphy. It's a huge world. And this is the site that Meta is having to sell because they're not allowed to keep it. And it looks like this is going to be, an area of contention. And the reason why Giphy is, it's user generated content, but once you put a GIF up there, it belongs to them. And so they have billions of GIFs up here of different kinds. There's two main kinds of GIFs or GIFs, whatever you want to call them GIFs, that you'll be dealing with in general. And that's going to be these types of GIFs, which are, just kind of boxy and a little animated. I don't know what this is. This one's got text, flashy, fun. But there's also what they call stickers. And stickers basically have transparent backgrounds and they're laid on top of other things. So if you're on Instagram and you see a little animated thing, it's more likely an animated GIF. It can't be really anything else. It can't be a video. It can't be any other technology because those platforms don't support it. And so that's one of the great things about using animated GIFs is basically you can insert them anywhere. You can insert them in any crappy technology like email browsers and they'll work. Okay, because email browsers are kind of a mess. You got, Mac Mail, and you got Gmail and Yahoo, and some people are still using Hotmail, and or I don't know what they're using, AOL or something. And all those browsers in your email are very old technology, but animated GIFs still work there. And in these social media apps, it's one little portable file. And so they're liked, but these are stickers. That's what they're calling them. Okay. Versus, an animated GIF, which isn't necessarily a sticker because it doesn't have a transparent background. So let's look at some kind of basic things with animated GIFs. Like, why would you use them, over using something else? Well, first of all, it's basically one of the few animation files that you can place in lots of different places. Okay, for example, in social media, you've probably seen these before. If you're on Facebook or Meta, or in Instagram, or if you're on Snapchat or one of those platforms. I really like Snapchat. I'm too old to be hanging out in Snapchat, but I like the technologies up there. I like what they're doing, and I think it's the future. I think the AR stuff is really cool. It's a lot of fun. And my 2 cents is that if you have some time on your hands, maybe go take some AR classes. In fact, Dribble, the site Dribble, BBL, that site Dribble, this site. They have classes that you can find up here for free. I don't know where they're at. You're gonna have to go find them up here. Maybe it's under Learn Design, but they have a series of AR classes that are coming up within the next few weeks. Oh, there they are. And they're free. So if you're an old dude like me that's trying to get into the new fangled things of these youngins, check this out. It's pretty fun stuff, and you're already masters at these other things, so this stuff might seem like really easy and basic, but it's where things are going, in my opinion. And not just my opinion. It's my opinion because I read other people's opinions. Okay, but anyways, GIFs can also be used in email marketing, as I was saying earlier, because they're very portable. You just stick the file in there. It acts like an image. It doesn't get rejected by email clients. You can also add them in text and messaging. Dating apps, for example, very, very popular to use animated GIFs all over the place as stickers. Very engaging. Websites and interfaces. If you go to different sites like maybe Airbnb, and you'll see like a little glowy thing or something. You're like, hey, what is that? What's more likely either some kind of CSS transformation, or it could be an animated GIF. And also, you can use them in presentations. So for example, I got some animation going on right here. This is Google Sheets, but this would have worked just as well inside of something else like PowerPoint. In fact, if you like these types of little animations here, in this class, I know it's an After Effects class sort of session, but not everyone's going to be up to using After Effects. Not everyone's going to be able to open the program and be technically savvy enough to do things in there, because After Effects is a tough one. So I have enough tools in here that I'm going to show you that even if you have very basic skills, you'll be able to make your own animated GIFs by the end of this session. So to get moving right along, a couple things that we got to know. Goods and bads with GIFs, okay? You can support only 256 colors. So if you take a JPEG and you make an animated GIF out of it, or just a regular GIF, it's going to start looking kind of bad because you're losing, instead of having millions of colors, now you only have 256 colors. But it does support transparency. You can animate them. They can be very portable, and you can have them loop, okay? Be careful. File size it's real easy to get these GIFs to be huge. I mean, you're like 100 megabyte GIF, and you're like, all it is just a little video. And it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have made it that big. So you have to be really careful in making small file sizes. It's important. Also, since you only have 256 colors, you may lose a lot of colors depending what you're making, and you may get some pixelation, dithering. Stay away from gradients. And then, of course, last but not least, you can make some really terrible things. Okay, I know I have. I've seen people do it because, like, Spider-Man, his aunt told Spider-Man with great power comes great flexibility. Is that I think that's what it is. Something like that. Anyways, be careful because you can make some awful things. And if maybe you like awful things and then you don't have any taste and you just keep making awful things, but you're happy. That's all that matters, I guess. Many years ago, way back when I was a young trainer, I was taking pretty much any gig that would come my way. And I got a gig from my brother who had recommended this job. And it was this lady, her name was Lori, and she needed some Macromedia training. She wanted to learn Fireworks, Dreamweaver, and Flash. And she had the money to have me go all the way out to her home and train her. And I was like, what? To her home? It's like in the middle of the Arizona desert. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, she was ready to pay top dollar. I was like, hell yeah, I'll go out there. So I went out there and it was a mobile home in the middle of nowhere. And it had like all this trash out in the front. I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to get paid. And what am I doing here? So I went anyways. And she was really nice. And she had built a site. And when we got into Fireworks, because Fireworks you could build animated GIFs with, she was so excited. And on her website, she had animated GIFs everywhere. And she also had MIDI files. So there was like Stairway to Heaven was on the homepage. And there was an animated dragon. But the dragon was messed up because the dragon flapped its wings really fast. And so, it was hilarious and really bad. And the training, we had to end up early because her kids were getting really ornery and her husband was getting angry that I was there. But anyways, adding GIFs can be a real dangerous thing. But go for it anyways, because people are going to do it regardless. As far as getting resources for GIFs, as I mentioned earlier, Giphy is one resource. So let's say you really like this GIF and you want to use it. You can click on it. You can find whatever GIF you're looking for, and then you can embed it somewhere on your site. You could also share it. And if you right click on some of these, you can even just save the image because it's just a single image. And basically it's yours. And so it's that easy. And you could put this in your text. You could send a text. In fact, if you're using iOS and you're sending a text, you probably know that you can add GIFs already through that platform. But you can also create your own GIFs. And so, for example, on Giphy, this is my test channel here. I have a few GIFs that I made, and this one has transparency. This is those of you that have been using Illustrator forever probably recognize this graphic. Okay. And so I could share and embed it. This is an animated sticker. Anyways, another resource is Tenor, which isn't nearly as popular, but these are also animated GIFs that people have made. We're going to start from the top though, and I'm going to jump you into a process of making animated GIFs as this class was advertised, and that is using After Effects. Imagine that.
Roman, are
Somebody
you
may
taking
say-
questions as you go along?
I
Or do you
suppose
want to
so.
save them for the end?
I wouldn't mind saving for the end, but if you got one, you're just like, I got to ask it, then go
No,
for it.
Okay, that's fine. Just ask them.
Okay.
Go on.
So some of you may be saying, well, I thought Photoshop was the best one for making animated GIFs. And the answer, in my opinion, is no. You can make animated GIFs with Photoshop, and it does a good job. But you don't have nearly the capabilities, flexibility, and tool sets that you have available with After Effects. And it doesn't mean that you have to be an After Effects expert to do this. So I'm going to jump into After Effects and I'm going to make a GIF from scratch. So first thing I'm going to do, and this part of the process is deciding what you're going to make. In this case, I want to make a sticker that I'm going to upload to Giphy, and then I can share with my friends, or I can store up in some repository on the web, and I can use it on different social media applications. Of course, I am giving that to Giphy, basically. Okay, so I'm making their worth more by putting my stuff up on their site, but whatever. Anyways, so I'm going to create a new composition here like you would. And if you're a brand new After Effects user, you're like, this is not a full class. Okay, but I'm just going to call this sticker, and I'm going to give it a custom size. Okay, of just 200 by 200. So it's just going to be a little GIF. Or I could say, maybe I want this to be bigger. I'll say 400 by 400. And the duration is really important. I don't want to make this really long because the longer it is, the bigger the file size. Okay. Because what's going to happen is, you'll see in just a little bit, is that every frame of this animation is going to be one image. And so if this thing is 30 seconds long, at 30 frames a second, that's 900 images that this animated GIF will be. And that's too much. So I'm just going to say this is going to be a 6-second animation. Okay, I'll give myself a light gray background just to be nice. Something like that, and hit OK. So I got myself my workspace ready to go. And then you're in a creative space, you're like, well, I don't know what to make. I guess I'll just make a rectangle. And you do that, and you're like, oh, this sucks. I'm not creative. I should have done something better with my life. Nope, I'm not going to do a rectangle. Okay. If you're needing to get started right away and you're like, well, I'll just go find something on Google. I'm like, nah, I don't do that either. Okay. Because it's not yours probably. And you could, especially if you got a really good joke idea or something. But instead, I'm going to go to Illustrator. And in Illustrator, you have your symbols libraries. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because these are free. And you don't have to give credit to anyone. You already own them, sort of. So in the symbols library, symbols panel, you have a library of all these different symbols. These are old school, man. They've been here forever. So flowers, for example, and you have all these cool little flowers that you could use. These are all vector. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to use that flower. This is a rose, I believe. Okay, so I'm going to take this rose here. That's not a rose. That is a bird of paradise, I guess. Okay. So I'm going to take this graphic and I want to put this into After Effects. Now, there are so many library symbols in here, by the way, and they're pretty fun. I like these tiki ones. There's that little tiki man that I did there. Made it into Bob's finger. Very cute. Okay, look at that bird there. I could even include the bird there if I wanted. Okay, maybe I'll do that. It's kind of fun. It's a giant flower. Okay, so I like what I got there, and I'm going to go ahead and take my artboard tool. I'm going to bring this down to size. And for those of you that are Illustrator nerds that are using After Effects, I recommend putting everything into layers. Okay, so I'm going to go to my layers panel here. And I'll have my bird layer. So I want to make sure that my bird layer is separate. A little trickeroni here. If you have some layers that are stuck inside of one layer, instead of having to come down here and create new layers to pull these out, because I'm trying to do that, I'm trying to pull it out of this layer so it'd be on its own. It doesn't do it. You can just right click on here, or actually you have to go to the menu, say release to layers. And now these are little individual layers. Okay. I can delete layer 1 now. And I got a bird and a flower. And that's it. So I'm just going to save this file here. I'm going to call this Paradise. I may start coughing or something because I have I caught a little cold. I don't have Corona, okay, because I got tested. But if I start coughing and turn off the camera, it's because I'm saving you from my embarrassment, okay? All right, so I'm going to go back to After Effects, and I'm going to double click to import a file. And there's my bird, my paradise there. I'm going to bring this in as a composition. Make sure that my dimensions are the layer size and hit OK. And there is my little paradise here. Now this dimension here is 351 by 463. And my sticker, I decided I wanted it 400 by 400. You could actually decide the size of this properly inside of Illustrator if you wanted to. But for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it this size. And I'm going to change this background color to something light gray again, so it's not unpleasant. Okay, so I have my two little guys here, and since I put these on separate layers, I can still move these around. I could have him come in, or maybe he's jumping up and down, and maybe the flower is moving around. And so here's one of the benefits of using, what are we doing? After Effects. Instead of using Photoshop, some of the benefits is that in After Effects, you have your basic animation features, which are bar none, one of the best in the industry for animation. But you also are able to do a lot of kinetic type without a whole lot of effort. There's Liquify tools, there's puppet pin tools, reverse time, plugins. You got more plugins. There's this thing called Gif we're going to talk about. There's just so much you can use, powerful tools to make your GIFs look amazing. And so it's like, I've had someone ask me, well, isn't it easier just to use like an online tool or some tool that's on my phone to make GIFs? I'm like, you can, totally. I'm like, what I heard Photoshop isn't so hard either. I'm like, well, you know, what do you want to do? Do you want to fly a rocket ship or do you want to ride a bicycle? You know, you got to decide. And if you're going to fly that rocket ship, it's going to take more effort, obviously. But when it's all done, you're flying a freaking rocket ship, right? And then you crash. But no, you're not going to crash. You're going to do good. So, so what I want to do here is I'm going to make this flower kind of wiggle a little bit. I'm going to have my little bird jump up and down. So since I have the power of After Effects, I can say, take this bird. I'm going to open up these controls down here and I have my transform controls, anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. And I just want him to bounce kind of up and down. And so on position, I have these two values. This is X and Y. So X side by horizontal and Y, which is vertical. That's what I want him to do right there. So I could create a whole bunch of keyframes. And I would do a keyframe here and then I'll move forward and then maybe he would go up or down or whatever. Maybe he'd go up here because he's jumping, right? So he's jumping and then he goes down. Something like that. And now when I play him back, you know, he just goes up and down. And the reason why I'm just doing that instead of adding a whole bunch of keyframes is that I want to make this as short as possible. And I want it to be looping because the shorter I can make this in time, the faster the file size. Okay. I mean, the smaller the file size. Okay. So the faster, the smaller, fast and small. If you are an After Effects user or you like code, you could also remove these keyframes and you could take this position and separate dimensions. This is just for the sexy people in the house. Okay, you don't have to know this, but you could just add a little wiggle property. I'm just showing off. Okay, that's the only code I know. And now he goes up and down kind of randomly. Okay, so you can do whatever you normally do in After Effects. If you just want to add little simple keyframes, go for it. If you want to do code, you can do whatever you want to do in here and not have to worry about a feature being unavailable to you because you're making these old school cheesy animated GIFs. I remember this animated GIF that my mom liked using, and she would put it in all her emails. This was back like in the late 90s. And it was a dolphin jumping over a rainbow. And it was just awful, but she used it everywhere. And then she stopped using it. But anyways, okay, so I got the little bird action going on and I want to use the flower. And so what I can do here is, I mentioned that you can use other tools such as the puppet pin tool. So I have a puppet pin tool here and I could come and maybe take this flower. I don't know why this flower is moving. But essentially, you come in here and you add these little points in which you want there to be movement. And you have to use, you can use a regular photograph. Like you could have a monkey and he's like dancing around or something, but you'd have to remove all of his background in Photoshop first and then bring him over. But all these pins that I've added in here can now be moved to move this image. Okay. But the problem is that, yes, that's cool. I can move this around. It's really neat. But now animating, how do you do that? Well, if you hold on to your control key on the Mac, control key on the PC, command key on the Mac, you get a little, looks like a little stopwatch when you hover over this puppet pin. And all I have to do is drag this around, and you'll see that it's created keyframes for me. So when I play this back, you'll see that that's moving. I'm not doing anything. I just hit space bar on my keyboard. And so I can do that with these other two over here, and the animation started right here at this point. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll move this all the way back to the beginning again, and then I'll move this, and then I'll go, notice that it jumps back to the beginning for me. And so I just come here and animate these. And now when I play this back, I got this animation here. It's pretty, it seems about as annoying as most animated GIFs. And now I need your help. I need a word to put in here. Does anyone have a suggestion? It has to be a small word, smallish. Anyone?
Bird.
Bird?
Bird is the word.
Okay. All right. Bird.
What's a bird of paradise and a bird? So bird.
Bird. Okay. We can even do bird is the word, you know.
There you go.
Beak, huh? All right, I'm using a Helvetica here because this is a very classy project. Okay, I think I shouldn't use Helvetica. Maybe I should use something else. I'll be here for a while looking for fonts. Okay, and how about Hobo? Let's ponder this for half an hour. Okay, so I can do whatever animation I want in here. In fact, let's say you're not very good at animation, After Effects, or like me, you're just lazy. You could go to your effects and presets inside of After Effects, and you could go to these animation presets, and you have these text presets. Now, there's a nice way where you can browse these presets in here, but it can be a little heavy on your computer. And what that does is it opens Adobe Bridge, and you can see these little animations before your eyes before you use them. But I'm just going to use, say, animate in, or I'm going to get fancy. There's these ones called organic, and maybe I want to use, I don't know what fish bait looks like, but I'm going to try fish bait. Okay. So take fish bait and drag that onto my word, and now I got that. That looks pretty cool. Or not. I don't know. I don't know. It looks good anymore. Okay, but these are a bunch of presets, and you saw it took zero effort on my part. And I think that's kind of the way you want to go with this, because if you're spending, days on a GIF, maybe you're trying too hard. I don't know. Maybe not. One thing I would caution you is that all of these are pretty, like, I might have issues with this little gradient right here. It looks like a gradient. It's probably, it could be a gradient, but I could have issues with this on the render, on the output. But if you want to put like a gradient background, I think that's where you'd probably get into possibly some trouble. Okay, but this right now, if I were to turn off the background, you'll see that all of this is going to be transparent. And so this could be a potential sticker. If I put a solid background or something, then it's no longer a sticker. And I said I wanted to make a sticker, so I'm going to leave this as it is. Now, right now, if I go to my timeline, I shortened this bar right here, and what this is called a work area, because it was 6 seconds. And now I really only need like 3 seconds to make this animation happen. But when I play it back, it kind of jumps. Like, it doesn't loop very well. And my little bird, I don't think it matters because he's just like really excited. And I don't know if it really, like, I'm going to play this back. And I don't think the bird of paradise matters either, that it loops or not. So I think the only really problem is this bird word. And so if I look at the bird word and I hit letter U, oh, I don't have any keyframes for some reason. What happened here? Give me a sec, folks. Don't know why it's not working. It's using some code or something in there. Maybe it's some wiggle. Yep, that's what it's doing. It's using a wiggle property randomizer. But what we can do here, I'm just gonna export this as it is for now for our first go around, and then I'll talk about how you can force for a looping so that it looks like it's looping. But anyway, so let's say I'm done with this. I'm going to go ahead and save this project because I haven't saved this at all yet. I'm going to call this bird Gif. Now, when I'm ready to export this, there's no animated GIF option in here. And if I export it to the render queue, there's no GIF option. Okay. If I export it to Media Encoder, there is a GIF option, but the animated GIF option, it stinks because it creates this huge GIF. It doesn't give you any control. It's just terrible. And so you end up doing all this work for your GIF, and then you can't give it to anyone or use it because the file is 50 megabytes. Okay. Because right now, I'm going to change this time code. Currently, this time code is 2 seconds, 17 frames. I can change this by just pressing Command click or Control click on your PC, and I can see the frames instead. So my animation is 90 frames long. So this is going to create 90 images, 90 GIFs, and it's going to put them all together in one file. But here's how you could do it. If you're on the cheap, there's two ways. One way is I could export this as an MP4, and then I could open it in Photoshop and use Photoshop's legacy tool, which is under here somewhere. You can export save for web legacy, and that would let you save an animated GIF. Even Adobe's not wanting to be very committal to animated GIFs. Okay, they like save for web legacy. Okay, we know this is old. They don't even have like a modern GIF output export tool. Anyways, so that's one way. The other way, and this is kind of cool, I think, is there's this website called easygif.com. And what you can do is you can upload your MP4 file, and it'll spit out a GIF for you. It's cheap, it's free, it's easy, and it works. It does give you some tips and tricks so that you can make your GIFs successfully. If you were to be uploading to Giphy, Giphy also has some best practices. Like uploads are limited to 15 seconds. Okay, ours is 3 seconds. Recommend no more than 6 seconds. Okay, limited to 100 megabytes, although we recommend 8 megabytes or less. And so they're going through all of this, and they're giving you tips because people already do this before, done this before. And a long time ago, this was probably like 2004. We got a gig because we used to build a lot of sites and stuff. We got this really good gig for a convention center, and all we made were little banner ads on top of sites, and they were animated GIFs, and they were for like celebrities and stuff that were coming to the convention center. So we had like Weird Al Yankovic, and his eyeballs were going back and forth, and so but we had to make these GIFs no more than 20 kilobytes. 20 kilobytes. It was really hard. We were able to push them to give us 50 kilobytes, but file sizes in here nowadays 8 megabytes. Oh my gosh, that's huge. Okay, anyways, so back here, as I said, I could just choose an export, use the render queue, which would allow me to export an MP4. That's one way. The other way, and this is a way that if you have 30 bucks in your pocket that you want to get rid of, you can go to a site called AEscripts, aescripts.com, and you can do a search for a plugin called GIFgun. And what it does is it lets you export GIFs from After Effects. And it's a really nice tool. Like, it works, and it optimizes those GIFs to a really small file size and somehow magically making them look beautiful. So if you're doing this and you're like committed to doing a good job on these, put out the $30. Don't be like me and wait 5 years, 6 years to buy it, even though you went and you went to some bar and bought 2 expensive beers that cost that much. It's worth it. It's only $30. And you'll own it forever. Like I've owned this for like 6 years now, and they keep giving me updates still. Anyways, I'm waiting for Media Encoder to launch. One of these days it'll launch. But I've already installed GIFGun, and there's GIFGun. It comes open like a panel. I guess my computer is it's overwhelmed with my creativity here. So give me a second. Oh, this is the intense interface of the GIFGun panel. Okay. Make GIF. It's pretty easy. But if you like the technical aspects, you can go to this little cogwheel and you can mess with these values and change things. Right now it's going to output to my project folder. So I'm just going to see what this does. So I'm going to choose make GIF, and it uses my render queue. It finished, and it says here it comes. Okay, it's working on it. It's doing something. If I was like, I need it now, I could go find it and like, okay, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And there's a folder that it creates called renders. And there's an MOV file, and there's a GIFGun GIFs, and I open this up, and there's my GIF. In fact, it just finished over here. Notice it doesn't say, coming soon or whatever. And there's my GIF, and I'm just going to preview this, and there's my GIF, ready to go, ready to upload to Giphy or whatever. I'm still waiting for Media Encoder. It finally opened. Okay, so there's Media Encoder. I'm just going to go ahead and render Media Encoder. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to compare with you live to see if this process is more optimized than this $30 plugin. Okay, well, first of all, I don't know about you, but Media Encoder lately has just been really slow. So I think I'll come back to this in a little bit. But anyways, now that I have this GIF, I could go to a site such as Giphy, right? I'll go to Giphy, and I'm going to upload my GIF so that I can use it in different places. Okay, that sounds like a good sound. So I'm going to choose a file here. And there's my renders, there's my GIF, there it is. It took all of these 90 images and it puts it into one animated GIF file. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up. And there is one problem that I did, is that it's not really a sticker because the background is still there. I'm like, I screwed up. So when you export animated GIFs, that's one thing to consider. And so when I go and click on this little cogwheel, you can choose to keep alpha, and that will make sure that your background is actually an alpha channel, which is basically this transparency grid that we want. So I'll push make GIF again, let that thing do its thing. It's working. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go to Media Encoder. It finished. There is my MP4 file, and it does have transparency. It looks like it has transparency, but it can't have transparency. And the reason why it can't have transparency is because it's an MP4. And MP4s don't support transparency and color. So it'd have to be like a QuickTime file. But if I use this site, I would need to output this as a QuickTime file. Okay, I need to put it up there as a QuickTime file. So that's one thing that you'll find when you're doing GIFs, is it's going to be a lot of like technical things where you're having to like start over again because you did something wrong, and maybe the file was too big, and so you're like, and you're trying again, and you're trying again, and you're trying again because you just keep messing up. And that's just the way it goes. And you're gonna have to just get better. It's one of our guys that works for us. I complained to him about something, and he says, I go, what do you think I should do? And he always says, just get better or try harder. And I'm like, I don't like that answer. You know, I want you to give me something better. But anyways, I'm going to use something like a ProRes, which is kind of an overkill. So maybe, you know, I'd have to go through here and find something, maybe this GoPro Cineform that would allow me to create a regular old QuickTime MOV file. So I'll try that again. And meanwhile, I'm going to go look at this animated GIF. This is my bird of paradise. And look at that transparency. Yay. Okay. So now when I go back to Giphy, I hope I'm not making you sick with all my fast movements here. I'll upload my bird of paradise. There it is. I can add some tags. Maybe paradise slash, you know, comma bird. So I just added those tags there. And when I'm ready, I can upload to Giphy. And I'm gonna pause for a little bit because I'm pretty sure that I'll be famous pretty soon. Okay. All right. So next thing, man, I want to try this because I just heard that happy little noise. So we're going to see if this works. Oh, I guess I have to, I have to push this button. Okay. Oh, there it is. There's my Bird of Paradise movie. Okay, it works. Bring that in, and I'm going to upload the video. And supposedly, this tool is going to process this file. And so there's the video, and I can decide I want video to GIF, and I can choose to convert to GIF. Come on. And then convert to GIF. You can do, there's some options in here, which is kind of cool. There it is. There's my GIF. And it was pretty small. This old school interface is fun. Okay. So I'm just saving this file down. And there it is. And there's my GIF. This file here, by the way, is 1.2 megabytes. That's the GIF from Easy GIF. This is the GIF from GIF Gun. Which one do you use? I don't know. I mean, it's obvious because this one is so much smaller. No, it's not. It's so much bigger. It's almost 3 times as big. But it seems to be performing better. Like it looks a lot better. It's kind of choppy. I don't know if you can tell on your side. Does it matter? It might not matter. If file size is more important to you, then maybe you want to choose this option. But what I have noticed with this tool is that it works, but its methods of doing things can sometimes make this play back a little rough. And so you'll have to experiment and say, you know, which one's the best option for me? What is going to help me get to my GIF magic destiny? Okay, where am I going to be famous faster? So that's the process. That's the whole workflow, getting from After Effects to an export to putting it up. Once you get your little sticker up here and you're happy with it, you know, you could share it. You could also just right click and save that image down and do something with it. But there's also some other fun tools up here on Giphy. For example, you can play a game. So this is loading Flappy Bird with my game. So I'm going to tap to fly. Oh man. Okay, so for the rest of the class, we're going to see if I can get further. Okay, that didn't go very well, but there's several games up here. And so this is like some other game. It reminds me of like the old days, okay, old Flash days. And so I don't know what you have to do here, but defend the center. You have to fling. Okay. Anyways, there's a lot of video games up there. They feel like old Flash games, but if you right click, I'm sorry, they're not Flash. I don't know what they are, but there's a lot of just kind of fun, silly things up here in Giphy that you can look at all these little games, and you can make your own template. It's really a lot of fun, but it's not supposed to be taken too seriously unless you're a hardcore gamer, and then in that case, take it seriously. But there's some other tools up here as well you can find, but for the most part, you're adding content to your own portfolio. And why I said that is that, for example, on Adobe Max, was it 2 years ago? And I use Adobe as an example because it's an Adobe User Group. They had a whole bunch of stickers made for the conference. Someone made those stickers. And so if you're a digital designer and you have a client, maybe one of the offerings you have is you make them stickers. And like, ooh, you know how to do that? One of my daughters works for a company. She's a digital designer. She works for a company out of LA, and she's been using these in her emails, just like a little bobbing or a clock that's spinning or something. And she's just like blowing people away. Like, whoa, animation. And it's a GIF. I mean, really? But everyone loves GIFs. You know what I mean? And you might get to the point where you're like, oh, but this seems like a lot of work, Well, you can go take these GIFs from Giphy if you want. That's one way to do it, or from Tenor. But you could also use sites such as this site here. Check this out. This one called StorySet. And what you do here is you can find all sorts of cool sort of graphics, infographics. They're the ones that are in my slides. So let's say you want something for work and you're like, let's see, design. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I like this one here. There's some variations here. They're cool. These are free, by the way. But what's nice is that it has its own little built-in animation tool. So from here, I can select an element. Maybe I select him, and I could have him. There's more animations here. Maybe he's the wind. I don't know why he's doing that. Heartbeat, spin. I like that. And then you can select other elements like this plant here, and maybe it's floating. And maybe this thing is shaking. And it goes back to that Spider-Man thing we're talking about, right? You can make some really, really amazing animations, and you can change this, change this up. You can make even like a fade in, so the whole thing fades in. And when you're done, you can export this thing. And you can export it actually as code if you want to, but you can also have it downloaded as an animated GIF. You can also download a video, but you can download this as an animated GIF and use this in your PowerPoints, use it on your website, use it wherever. These are really, I just did something awful, but you get the idea. And you can also just choose to randomize it, and this will create a random animation for you. People really like these, especially nowadays when you're doing these online presentations and you're boring people to death. You can use these in your PowerPoints or in your Google Sheet presentations, and they just like it. I started using it. I thought it was going to annoy people, but they just seem to like it. Yeah, thanks for putting the link up there. So yeah, so this company, which you've probably heard of before, which is you've probably not heard of StorySet, but and by the way, those of you that are hardcore UX UI designers, there is a plugin for Figma if you care about that. But the company that makes StorySet is actually FreePick, which you've probably heard of before, possibly. FreePick. Come on, FreePick, work. And so they're a real company, and supposedly, and they have different projects. So they have FreePick, which is this site with free graphics. But they also have a flat icon, which is used to be one of my favorite sites. They're getting less favorite because they're starting to charge, and that makes me angry. They have Slides Go, which we just talked about, and then I don't know what WePick is, but there's also a WePick, some kind of, I guess it's probably like Adobe Spark, where you get to make like graphics or something. But either way, it's all pretty free and easy to use. And this Slides Go, Story Set is what it's called. This is pretty nice for making your animated GIFs. Back to making animated GIFs. If you wanted to create an animated GIF from Giphy, you could just go up here and there's different ways that you can make GIFs and just right here from the application. And what you basically do is you'd be able to go here, and perhaps you want to, let me see, let me get here. You can take video and upload it here, like YouTube videos, and it'll convert them into GIFs for you. I won't get into that because it's just really easy, and it's fun, and I don't want to spoil it if you like this. But go up here because you'll find all sorts of really cool little things like, what's this? AR GIFs. I was just talking about AR early on. You can make AR GIFs in here as well. And this stuff works in these different platforms, Oculus and so forth, which I think Oculus is changing its name pretty soon, right? To Meta or something. Anyways, so check this out. It's really easy to use, even if you're not an After Effects user. If you are an After Effects user, you can further augment what you're currently doing. And like I mentioned, in After Effects, there's other tools that you can use. So let's say I take an image and maybe I just get a dog. This is not like maybe such a good idea if you're not wanting to use like someone's copyrighted images, but I'm just going to do this for the sake of this class. So I'm going to save this image. And let's say you wanted to make an animated GIF out of an image and you wanted to use After Effects. So what I could do is I could import that image. And it's kind of big. Again, it's 800 by 825. That's a pretty big graphic. It's going to make a big GIF, and I don't want big GIFs. So I'm going to make this, I'll say 400 by 400, like I did last time. And I'll call this dog GIF. And so I'm just going to insert my dog here. You see how big that is? Too big. Bring him down. That looks pretty good. If you want to add type, of course, you just add type here. If you wanted to use impact, because everyone uses impact, you use impact. And if you wanted to add a drop shadow, there's a few ways to do that in After Effects, but I'll just come here and I'll add a layer style to add a drop shadow. There, a GIF is done. Now it's not a GIF yet, right? But what could you do with this type of thing? You could use the puppet pin. Another thing you can do is you can use an effect called Liquify, which is an old school After Effects effect. And you just drop this on here and you have this set of tools. So one, for example, is this bulgy tool. And I'd be able to click and make his eyes more bulgy. And if I wanted to animate this, I could do that. I'm going to make his eyes really bulgy. Okay. I hope none of you are taking this really seriously, because animated GIFs are really hard to take seriously. If you want to make this smaller here, I could make his nose smaller, for example. Maybe he's got funny nose or whatever. And then to change the strength of this, you have this distortion percentage. So I could bring this down to 0 and he looks normal. I could turn on the stopwatch for distortion percentage, press the letter U, like uniform, and I can see this distortion percentage down here, and I would be able to animate that. So to animate so that this will get larger and smaller, I'm going to move to say maybe about 10 frames, And I'll bring this up to 100% or maybe even 200%. His eyes are really big. And then if I were to just loop this, it would look like this. But I wanted to get small again and then large again. So whenever you're creating animations in this way, you want to be able to create probably 3 keyframes. And so it's going to get from small to big and then to small again. But we want to do this through animation. So I'll add another keyframe here and I'll bring this down. And when I play this back, it's going to look like this. No, not like that. Like this. Okay. And this is such a small GIF. I mean, look at that. It's only going to be 18 frames long. And I'm making the thing that I wanted to make. What's also nice about After Effects is that, and you could do this with Photoshop too, is that you have your effects and presets. And you have all these coloring effects. You have everything in After Effects. So I could go to my animation presets, for example, just because I'm being lazy, and go to Image Creative, and you have like these different color effects. So maybe he's evil. Okay, evil dog. Whoops. Or perhaps that's too evil. He's just a nice puppy. You could use like just a nice sunset gradient on there. Okay, it looks kind of fun. And so I'm using these really like awesome effects on here to make a GIF. The same process stands as we did before. You could export as an MP4 and then use it on that website, or you could use a tool like GIF Gun. Most of the pros that I've worked with use GIF Gun. And what they do is if their files are coming out too large, then what they'll do is they'll try to mess with these files, like compressing this. For example, I'm going to use a medium compressor in here, infinite loop. It's going to save a video copy, which you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And which is done, and I make the GIF. And so we saw that it was like a whole lot larger than the one on the web, but it also played back really nice, much nicer than the one on the web. So let's see what this looks like. It still says it's 94% ready, compression done. And then it opens up a folder for you. Okay, and it shows you your GIF. And there's my dog GIF. It's like, I don't really see too much animation happening here. I mean, that's animating, but the dog isn't animating. And so, and this is kind of large too. Like that's the size I really wanted it to be, which this size right here is more like, yeah, that's about right. 400 by 400 came out too big. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of this is going to be back and forth to testing and seeing what you did wrong. But this is 2.6 megabytes, and it's too big, probably. But what I would do is I would go back in here and test my animation again, make sure that this animation stuck, and you can see something happened to my animation. Like I did something to remove this, even though I see it there, it's not happening. Maybe I broke After Effects, or maybe you see it should be animating. Yeah, something weird happened. I'm going to sometimes using those weird color effects causes that. And then if I look at the size, it is 400 by 400, so it should have worked. I'm going to go ahead and try this again. Lots of experimentation here. And there's my GIF. Nope, that's not the GIF. There's the GIF. And there's the animation. Kind of weird. I don't like that. I used to do that Liquify effect with people's faces, and just for fun, because I was bored. People didn't like that. But you can see the preview in the preview window. It even works in the Mac preview, and nothing works in the Mac preview, right? And so these are just very portable. But you'll notice that compared to the original file, it doesn't look as good. But this is still 256 colors. It looks pretty good. If I upload this to a Giphy, it should work just fine too. So now I have my masterpiece. And what's this? I can make my own virtual background. What is that? Make any video conference far more fun by creating your own backdrop. By uploading a background. I don't even know what this is. I'm telling you, Giphy's like got all these things up there, all these crazy fun tools that you could really spend a whole afternoon on, or maybe longer. But if you look at your profile now, you now have started creating a collection. And so maybe next time Meta tries buying Giphy, maybe they come to you directly and say, we'll buy you because your GIFs are amazing. Anyways, any questions now? I know I appreciate you guys holding off on questions if you had any, but has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, Roman, I was, you know, I've used Flash for about 15 years. Flash used to be my baby back in the days, right? And then I got a hold of After Effects. I love After Effects because basically you can animate everything. I mean, you can animate up down to the letter of a word. I mean, easily. Everything in After Effects you can do easy. And then you got all the presets that you mentioned. I had a question though for you. And that is, have you ever heard of another file format called Lottie, L-O-T-T-I-E?
Yes, sir. That's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I love Lottie files. I have another program called Create Studio, and it will import. In fact, you can download some free Lottie files. And it's like animated GIFs as well, but I think it uses SVG instead of images.
Yeah, you know, we were doing a lot of UX stuff, training and stuff for some companies that were wanting to create mobile apps, that were creating mobile apps. And so they were creating sprites in After Effects and then using, you know, Airbnb's Lottie. And so, you know, there's a whole process, right? We're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it seems to be getting quite adopted out there. In fact, even what is that web tool? It's called Web something. It's like a very
It's by
popular.
Adobe?
No, it's not by Adobe. It's let me just take my browser. Webflow. You guys heard of Webflow?
I hadn't heard of them.
So Webflow. Let's see. I just stopped sharing somehow.
There you go.
So this is Webflow, and it's a web builder. It's like Wix or something, but it's actually a good web builder. And why I'm mentioning this isn't because I think it's cool and you should go build your site with it, because it's not free. But somewhere in here, and to answer to what you're asking about, look at that. You can add Lottie animations right in here.
Okay.
So it's like it's being adopted already. And so, and it's a good point that you made about Lottie, because as far as like being something that's more industrial, like
Yeah, if you Google Lottie, you could go to a website that has a boatload of nice animation, by the way, not what you say cheesy, but some really nice animation that you can include in many presentations.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Webflow is not free anymore. I mean, it's sort of free. I mean, it's free to a certain extent if you don't mind having like their badges on your site and stuff like that. But a lot of like, we hardly get anyone wanting to web building classes anymore. It just,
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because everyone's trying to just use WordPress, and WordPress sucks because it's so heavy, you know, and you still have to like install it. It's nice looking, but it's like really heavy, and there's SEO issues and and so a lot of companies are using stuff like Unbounce for marketing their emails and stuff like this, or landing pages.
Right.
And then for web building, they wouldn't touch like Weebly or Wix, because those are really like for, small individual users, small businesses. But they're adopting Webflow more and more as kind of a professional tool, because when you build Webflow, you're actually building like real code, and you're adding divs and containers and stuff that's real, instead of just pushing buttons and randomly
Right.
adding who knows what. You know what I mean?
So you don't offer a Dreamweaver. I used to love Dreamweaver, but again, not many people use Dreamweaver that much anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll occasionally get someone that wants it, but the only time I've ever taught Dreamweaver has been at Max, and they even said they don't want that anymore.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
And so, and I didn't even want to do it to begin with, but they're like, I was like, I want to teach this, and they're like, well, can you do Dreamweaver? Dreamweaver? It's like, yeah, but does anyone even use it? And then at the conference, there's like all these big companies using Dreamweaver. I was like surprised. Because web building's tough. It's very difficult to build sites, because those of you that are digital designers that use Photoshop and Illustrator, everything just works. It's not like, oh, sorry, Tom, you can't print this file because there's a new format that Microsoft uses, and you're gonna have to download new font types. And you're like, what?
It's 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's just
even
so much crap on the web that makes it difficult to build. And so platforms like Webflow and WordPress and such like that are becoming more standard, because no one wants to be hassling with all the technical difficulties of things breaking because of new things that come up, but all along the way, GIFs are still being used. So.
Well, GIFs are also a thing of the past, like you pointed out. The first web pages, like in the early 90s, were like packed with crazy little GIFs everywhere.
Oh yeah, the dancing
lights
bears
blinking and hands waving and stuff. But they were tiny, tiny little ones.
Yeah.
But I have a question regarding file sizes, Roman. I understand there is a lot of variables that will influence the file size here. The pixel dimensions, the frame number of frames, the frame rate, maybe the playback speed. Do you have any idea? Do you have some advice as to what parameters will be most or more important than others when it comes to keeping the GIF file size low?
Probably the two most important parameters are making sure that the animation dimension isn't too large. Like if your intent is to be texting it to people, making sure that these are quite a bit smaller than something that you would put on a desktop. So maybe you make it 200 by 200 pixels. Also, length of the animation. If you make an animation that's a minute long, it's going to be a massive file. You saw how short these animations are and how big the files are that were being created. And so they got some good best practices up here as far as saying no more than 6 seconds. They don't say the dimensions up here, but the dimension is also something to keep in mind. Probably
the color palette, you can go lower than 256, I guess. Will that reduce the file size at all?
That will definitely reduce the file size, and potentially it also make a really ugly GIF,
But it will create a color table that's optimized. I mean, even at 128, right? So
yeah, so like I could say here I only want 8 colors. Whereas if I know you're familiar with the Photoshop like crazy. You're master at Photoshop, so I know you've seen the save for web legacy, and there you got like all this fancy tools and stuff. These don't have very fancy tools. In fact, the Photoshop GIF exporter is the best. The media encoder GIF exporter is bad, and the Flash GIF exporter is also not great because it's only for Flash files. And so, man, I've wasted so much time on this trying to find like the optimal files.
And how about the transparency? I guess I assume that's just 1 pixel, so that won't change the. I mean, it's just like one single color value that is transparent, so that won't affect the file size, will it?
It probably will, just because in general, alpha channels do affect file size, because now you're including that channel as well,
Okay.
instead of just having RGB. But I think, let's see, what time is it right? This is the new GIF at only 8 colors.
Oh yeah.
And it looks, the thing is, it's GIF gun though. GIF gun is a really nice tool. And if I use the Photoshop Save for Web Legacy, it might not make it look as good.
But I guess they should have added good practices to include solid colored areas, because they will convert very, I mean, gently to GIF, right?
Sometimes, but what I've noticed sometimes, that you would think, right? But then sometimes what happens is that you'll see some dithering around the edges, even though they're solid colors, sometimes. And so it's just kind of, it's a lot of trial and error. When we were doing that project I was telling you about, we got kind of to a formula of how we would do things. And the formula is we would use the same file format template over and over again. And we would like optimize things to a certain percentage before we even like brought it into the file. We were using Fireworks actually back then. Fireworks is great for making these types of things, you know. In fact, I still think that's probably one of the best tools for creating, you know, web graphics, even over Photoshop, because
That's also a thing of the past, isn't it? Fireworks.
Yeah, old school.
It's gone. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Roman. This is awesome. If there's more questions, we can spend a few more minutes. We have our little raffle drawing left. So I know Karen has the tool to perform